The message came at midnight. Aisha's phone vibrated softly on the small wooden table beside her bed. The room was dark, quiet, and warm, but the sound felt loud, almost sharp. She was half asleep when she reached for the phone. At first, she thought it was another message from family members talking about the marriage again. Everyone had been talking non-stop since the news broke. But this message was different. It came from an unknown number. Her eyes slowly focused on the screen as she opened it. The moment she read the words, all the sleep left her body. "If you marry him, you will die." Aisha sat up straight. Her heart began to beat fast. She read the message again, hoping she misunderstood it. But the words did not change. They stayed cold and clear, like they were carved into the screen. Her hands started to shake. Just a few hours earlier, she had smiled for photos, listened to congratulations, and thanked people who wished her happiness. Her friend, someone she trusted for years, had finally announced their marriage. Everyone said it was a perfect match. Two friends becoming life partners. A beautiful story. But now, in the silence of her room, that story felt like a lie. Aisha locked the phone and placed it face down. She tried to calm herself, telling herself it was probably a joke. Maybe someone was jealous. Maybe it was just a sick prank. But deep inside, she knew it was not a joke. The message felt personal. She got out of bed and walked to the window. The street outside was empty. A single streetlight flickered. For the first time in years, her home did not feel safe. Earlier that day, everything had been normal. Aisha had known Cameron since college. They studied together, shared notes, laughed during long lectures, and supported each other during hard times. When life pushed her down, Cameron was there. When he struggled, she stood by him. Their friendship was strong, steady, and trusted. So when Cameron's family sent the marriage proposal, no one was surprised. At first, Aisha was unsure. Marriage was a big step. But Cameron was kind, respectful, and patient. Over time, she agreed. Their families met. Dates were discussed. The announcement was made. That was when everything changed. After the announcement, Aisha noticed small things she first ignored. Strange looks from people she did not know. Silent phone calls that ended the moment she answered. A shadow of fear followed her, though she could not explain why. Now, sitting alone in her room, the fear finally had a face. A threat. She wanted to call Cameron right away. Her fingers hovered over his name. But she stopped. What would she say? What if he thought she was overreacting? She decided to wait until morning. That night, Aisha barely slept. Every small sound made her jump. Her mind kept replaying the message again and again. Who would want her dead? And why now? By morning, dark circles formed under her eyes. At breakfast, her mother talked happily about wedding clothes and guest lists. Aisha forced a smile, hiding the storm inside her. When she finally met Cameron later that day, she showed him the message. His face changed. At first, he laughed softly. "This is nonsense," he said. "Someone is trying to scare you." But when Aisha told him about the silent calls and strange feelings, his smile faded. "This is serious," he said quietly. They decided not to tell their families yet. Cameron promised to look into it. He said he had some old contacts who could trace the number. Aisha agreed, though her heart felt heavy. As days passed, the threats did not stop. Another message came. "Last warning. Walk away." Then another. "You have been watched." Each message pushed Aisha deeper into fear. She stopped going out alone. She checked behind her while walking. Her happy future now looked like a dark tunnel with no light. What hurt the most was the silence from Cameron. At first, he called often. But slowly, his calls became shorter. His replies came late. When she asked if he found anything, he always said, "Not yet." One evening, Aisha saw something that made her stomach turn. She was scrolling through social media when she noticed a photo Cameron was tagged in. He was standing next to a woman she had never seen before. They were close. Too close. The caption read, "Some meetings are meant to happen." Aisha stared at the screen for a long time. A cold thought entered her mind, one she did not want to accept. What if the threat was not coming from a stranger? What if it was connected to someone she trusted? That night, another message arrived. This time, it said something different. "You should have said no from the start." Aisha felt something inside her change. Fear slowly turned into anger. Confusion turned into clarity. Whoever was doing this wanted to control her life. They wanted her to step back quietly, scared and broken. But Aisha was not weak. If someone wanted to destroy her, she would find out who it was. And when she did, they would regret ever sending that message. Aisha's mind refused to rest. The new message haunted her. "You should have said no from the start." Every word seemed sharper than a knife, as if the sender knew her thoughts, her fears, and her smallest secrets. She could not sleep again that night. The darkness of her room felt heavier. Every sound, the distant bark of a dog, the soft hum of a fan, even her own breathing, made her flinch. Her phone, sitting on the bedside table, seemed like a ticking bomb. The next morning, Aisha decided she could not wait anymore. She had to find answers. She called Cameron early, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. "I want to see the messages," she said firmly. "I need to know everything." Cameron hesitated. "Aisha, I'm trying. I don't want to scare you more." "No, Cameron. I need to know now. If someone wants to hurt me, we can't wait." There was silence on the line. Then finally, he agreed. "Okay. Meet me at the cafe near my office in 1 hour." Aisha dressed quickly, her hands shaking as she grabbed her bag. She wanted answers, but a part of her also feared what she would discover. What if Cameron had been hiding something? What if he was involved, even unknowingly? When she arrived at the cafe, Cameron was already there, sitting at a corner table. His face looked tense, pale, unlike the calm friend she had always known. "I called a friend who works in IT security," he said quietly. "They tried to trace the number. It's complicated. The messages come from untraceable sources. Someone is careful, very careful." Aisha frowned. "Careful? Or someone close?" Cameron looked down at his cup, avoiding her eyes. I don't know. But I think someone who knows us is behind this." Aisha's heart sank. She had felt it before, but hearing it confirmed made her stomach twist. She thought about the photo she had seen on social media, the woman with Cameron. The strange looks from people she did not know. The silent calls. Her mind raced. Who could want to harm her? Who could want to control her life so badly? Cameron continued. "I tried to ignore it, thinking it might be jealousy or a prank. But now, I realize it might be personal. Dangerous." Aisha's hand trembled slightly. "Dangerous? Cameron. I feel like I'm trapped in a nightmare." He reached out and held her hand. "We'll figure this out. Together." Aisha wanted to believe him, but doubt had begun to grow like a shadow in her heart. She remembered the woman in the photo again. She remembered how Cameron's calls became shorter, how he seemed distant. Could he really be helping, or had he been hiding something? Later that day, Aisha returned home and decided to check her social media carefully. Something caught her eye, a comment under her engagement post, written by a stranger. Some love stories are better ended before they begin. Her chest tightened. Someone was watching every move, every post, every smile. The thought made her furious. She hated the feeling of being weak, scared, and controlled. That evening, while Cameron was busy with work, Aisha started making notes. Every message, every call, every suspicious thing she remembered. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. Most strange incidents happened after she interacted with certain people, some friends, some distant relatives. Her anger grew. Fear had been her first reaction. But now, clarity replaced it. Someone wanted her to back down. Someone wanted to destroy the happiness she had dreamed of. She decided she would not give them the satisfaction. She would not hide. She would not cry silently. She would fight. The first step, she realized, was to find out who was really behind this. The next day, she made a plan. She pretended to ignore the messages, to act normally in front of everyone. But behind closed doors, she observed, recorded, and collected information. Her eyes were sharper, her mind faster. The fear that once paralyzed her now fueled her determination. It was during this quiet observation that she noticed something shocking. A distant cousin, someone who had always been friendly, had been unusually curious about her wedding plans. They asked too many questions, subtly, through social media comments, calls, and casual conversations. Aisha's heart raced. Could it really be them? She needed proof. She needed to catch the person in the act. Days passed. She stayed alert, careful, pretending to be unaware. Every evening, when the lights went out, she checked her phone, her computer, and even small notes she had kept from conversations. She noticed more odd coincidences, a friend who always seemed coincidentally present when she went out, a family member who asked too many questions about her schedule. Her anger slowly transformed into a plan. The fear was gone. Now, there was only one goal: find the enemy, expose them, and make them regret ever thinking they could threaten her happiness. And she realized something else: revenge would not be simple. The person behind these messages was clever, careful, and patient. But Aisha was clever too. She would match every move with patience, observation, and strategy. By the end of the week, she had created a small network of observations, notes, photos, screenshots, and timelines. She felt ready. The hunter would soon become the hunted. Aisha knew that once she started, there would be no turning back. The person who sent the death threats would not only be exposed, they would feel the full weight of her wrath. And deep inside, a dark thrill ran through her veins. The message that once terrified her now felt like a challenge. They wanted her scared. She would make them regret it forever. Aisha's plan was set, though she still had to be careful. One wrong step, and the person behind the threats could vanish again. She had learned that patience was her greatest weapon. Fear was gone. Anger was controlled. Now, strategy ruled her mind. The first step was observation. She started following the small hints she had collected, the silent calls, the suspicious comments, the distant cousin who seemed too curious about her wedding. Each detail mattered. Every word, every glance, every coincidence could be a clue. One afternoon, Aisha pretended to be busy at home while secretly monitoring her messages and social media. Her phone buzzed as usual with another anonymous text. "You cannot escape." Instead of panicking, she smiled faintly. She knew that whoever was sending these messages thought she was scared. They thought she would stay silent, fearful, and alone. They were wrong. Aisha decided it was time to lure the person into making a mistake. She replied to the message, not with fear, but with curiosity. "Who are you? Show yourself." There was no immediate reply. But that night, she noticed unusual activity on her social media. Someone had created a fake account to follow her, commenting on every post, watching her every move. This was the opening she had been waiting for. Over the next few days, Aisha set a trap. She pretended to ignore the threats, acting normal in front of family and friends. She even spoke cheerfully to Cameron, who still worried about her safety. But every small movement was planned. She monitored messages, took screenshots, and tracked digital footprints wherever possible. Then came the breakthrough. One evening, she received a message not from the unknown number, but from a familiar name, her distant cousin, Zoya. The message was simple but chilling. "Stop acting brave. You know what will happen if you cross me." Aisha's eyes narrowed. She had suspected Zoya, but this message confirmed it. The person who had sent death threats, who had stalked her, was someone she had trusted, someone in her own family. The betrayal cut deep. Zoya had been close since childhood. They shared birthdays, family events, secrets, and laughter. And now, she wanted to destroy Aisha's happiness. Aisha clenched her fists. Anger surged, but she kept her calm. She knew showing emotion would give Zoya power. Instead, she started planning her counterattack. The next day, she pretended to be scared again. She told Cameron she was worried and felt unsafe. Her voice trembled as if the threat still frightened her. Cameron, trusting her, promised to stay close and protect her. This was perfect. Zoya would watch every interaction, unaware that Aisha was now in control. Aisha created a fake online trail to make Zoya believe she was still scared and unsure. She posted subtle hints on social media about feeling alone, about fearing her future, about possibly canceling the wedding. Zoya noticed immediately, leaving comments and messages that revealed her obsession. Now, Aisha was ready for the next step, exposing Zoya. She arranged a meeting with a mutual family friend who was skilled with technology. Aisha explained the situation carefully, showing all screenshots, messages, and suspicious activities. The friend agreed to help trace the messages and gather undeniable proof. Meanwhile, Zoya grew bolder. Another message arrived that very night. "You think you can escape me? Think again." Aisha read it calmly. She saved it, screenshot by screenshot. She knew every word would help her in the plan she was building, a plan where Zoya would face not just exposure, but humiliation and regret. The next morning, Aisha received a call from Cameron. "I tried tracing the last number," he said, voice worried. "It's complicated, but someone is definitely watching you. Stay careful." Aisha smiled faintly. "I know," she said softly. She did not tell him that she already knew who it was. The thrill of knowing while keeping the enemy unaware made her feel powerful. Over the next week, Aisha continued her double game. She acted scared, alone, and vulnerable in front of everyone. But secretly, she was setting the stage. Every move Zoya made, every message she sent, every attempt to scare her, was being documented. Finally, Aisha set a trap that she knew Zoya could not resist. She posted a photo online, not a normal photo, but one that hinted at a secret gift for the wedding. In reality, the gift did not exist. It was bait. Within hours, Zoya reacted. Messages came flooding in, each one revealing her obsession, her anger, her jealousy, and her fear of losing control. Aisha saved every message. Every proof was now in her hands. For the first time in days, she allowed herself a small smile. Fear had been replaced by power. The hunter had become the hunted. And she knew, soon, very soon, Zoya would realize she had underestimated Aisha. The first move of her revenge was complete. But this was just the beginning. The real plan, the part where Zoya would face consequences, was yet to come. Aisha had waited patiently, and now it was time for the next step. She had gathered proof, traced every move, and watched Zoya make mistakes one after another. Each threatening message, each comment, each suspicious action was a piece of evidence. Aisha felt ready to strike, not with violence, but with a clever, unstoppable plan that would expose Zoya and make her regret every word she had sent. The morning started like any other. Aisha woke up, had breakfast with her family, and acted cheerful in front of Cameron. Inside, her mind was focused like a hunter stalking prey. Zoya would never suspect that the seemingly scared, vulnerable Aisha she had been threatening for weeks was now fully in control. She began by sending a subtle, fake message to Zoya's phone. "You think I'm afraid? Let's see what happens when the truth comes out." Almost immediately, Zoya reacted. The messages became frantic and angry. She was losing control. Every word she sent only strengthened Aisha's evidence. Aisha saved every screenshot and recorded the exact times. Next, Aisha contacted the family friend she had trusted, the one skilled in technology. Together, they set up a digital reveal. Aisha wanted not just to confront Zoya but to expose her publicly, so everyone in the family would know about the betrayal. Meanwhile, Aisha continued pretending to be fearful. She whispered to Cameron that she felt unsafe and suggested delaying the wedding. Cameron, unaware of the trap, tried to comfort her, which was exactly what Aisha wanted. She knew Zoya was watching and taking notes of every interaction. Her enemy's obsession with controlling Aisha was now her biggest advantage. By evening, Aisha was ready. She invited Zoya over, under the pretext of a family discussion about the wedding plans. Zoya, confident that she still had power over Aisha, came without hesitation. She smiled politely, but her eyes flickered with suspicion. She could sense that something was different, but she could not figure out what. Aisha stayed calm and composed. She greeted Zoya warmly, then asked her to sit down. "Zoya," she began softly, "I think we need to talk about what's been happening lately. All the messages, all the threats. I know it was you." Zoya's face turned pale. For a moment, she laughed nervously, thinking it was a bluff. "What? Me? That's ridiculous, Aisha." Aisha shook her head, smiling faintly. "I have proof. Every message you sent, every comment you made, every time you tried to scare me, it's all recorded." She tapped her phone and opened a folder full of screenshots and recordings. Zoya's hands trembled. Her confident mask started to crumble. "You can't, this isn't real." "I didn't." "You did," Aisha interrupted firmly. "You sent death threats. You stalked me. You thought I would be scared. But you were wrong. Very wrong." The room was silent except for Zoya's shaky breaths. She realized she had underestimated Aisha, and now, she had no way out. Aisha had not only caught her red-handed but had done it in front of witnesses. Aisha stood up, her eyes cold but calm. "This ends now, Zoya. You are going to regret ever thinking you could control my life." Zoya fell into a chair, staring at Aisha. There was anger, fear, and disbelief all mixed in her expression. She knew the trap was complete. Every lie, every threat had been turned against her. Then Aisha did something unexpected. Instead of yelling or causing a scene, she calmly left the house with Cameron, letting Zoya stew in her own fear and shame. Aisha wanted Zoya to realize, fully and slowly, the power of her actions and their consequences. That night, Aisha checked her messages one last time. No new threats came. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of relief. She knew the danger was over. But more importantly, she knew she had regained control of her life. The next morning, Aisha shared the evidence with the family. Zoya had no choice but to admit her actions. The family was shocked, angry, and disappointed, but they also respected Aisha for handling everything with intelligence and courage. Aisha realized revenge was not about hurting Zoya physically. It was about exposing the truth, regaining control, and making the enemy face the consequences of their actions. And in that moment, Aisha felt stronger than ever before. She had turned fear into power, threats into strategy, and betrayal into a lesson that no one would forget. The first stage of her revenge was complete. But Aisha knew this was just the beginning. The final step, the moment where Zoya would truly regret everything, was still to come. Aisha had been patient. Every step, every message, every screenshot, every careful observation had led to this moment. She had regained control, exposed Zoya's betrayal, and slowly weakened her enemy's power. But the final step, the step that would make Zoya truly regret everything, was about to unfold. The day began quietly. Aisha woke up early, feeling a strange mixture of calm and excitement. She prepared herself carefully, not for a confrontation, but for a revelation. She had called a small family meeting, inviting only the closest relatives, Cameron and Zoya. She had everything ready, messages, screenshots, timelines, and even evidence from their technology-savvy family friend. When Zoya arrived, she smiled, trying to hide her nervousness. But Aisha noticed the small tremor in her hands, the quick flicker of fear in her eyes. Zoya thought she still had control. She did not know that Aisha had outsmarted her at every turn. The meeting started with small talk, but Aisha quickly brought the conversation to the point. Zoya, she began calmly, there are some things that need to be addressed. Things that cannot be ignored anymore. Zoya raised her eyebrows. What do you mean? She asked, trying to sound confident. Aisha held up her phone and projected the first screenshot onto the television screen in the living room. Every message Zoya had sent, the threats, the comments, the obsession, was there for everyone to see. The words were clear, sharp, and undeniable. This is who you really are, Aisha said softly, but her voice carried a weight that filled the room. Someone who tried to destroy my happiness, someone who thought they could control my life with fear. But you were wrong. Zoya's face turned pale. Her hands fumbled as she tried to explain herself. I didn't mean. Aisha interrupted firmly. You meant every word. And now everyone knows. The room was silent. Family members whispered among themselves, shocked and disappointed. Cameron's face showed a mix of relief and pride. Aisha had done what no one expected, she had confronted betrayal with courage, intelligence, and strategy. Zoya's composure broke completely. She slumped into her chair, tears forming in her eyes, shame flooding her face. I'm sorry, she stammered, but the words sounded hollow. It was too late for apologies. Aisha continued, her tone calm but powerful. Apologies cannot erase fear. Apologies cannot erase threats. But you can choose to learn from this. Learn that betrayal has consequences. Learn that revenge can be patient, precise, and unstoppable. Zoya looked at her, speechless. For the first time, she realized the true cost of her actions. She had underestimated Aisha, thinking fear could control her. But Aisha had transformed fear into strategy, patience into power, and betrayal into justice. Over the next few days, life slowly returned to normal for Aisha. She and Cameron continued their wedding plans, but now with a stronger bond. The shadow of the death threats no longer haunted her, replaced by confidence, clarity, and a sense of triumph. Zoya, meanwhile, faced consequences from the family. She had lost the trust and respect she once had. People who had once supported her now distanced themselves. She had become an example of how jealousy, obsession, and threats could destroy someone's own life. Aisha did not gloat. She did not seek revenge for the sake of cruelty. Her victory was quiet but absolute. It was in the exposure of truth, in the reclaiming of control, in the satisfaction of seeing justice served. One evening, as Aisha sat with Cameron, she reflected on everything that had happened. The fear, the betrayal, the threats, and finally, the victory. She realized how much she had grown, not just as a person, but as someone who could face danger, deception, and threats with intelligence and courage. Cameron held her hand gently. "You were amazing, Aisha. I don't know anyone else who could have handled this so perfectly." Aisha smiled softly. "It wasn't about being amazing. It was about standing up for myself, refusing to be scared, and making sure that the person who tried to destroy me understood the consequences." She looked at the sunset through the window, feeling the warmth and peace she had almost lost. The nightmare of the death threats was over, replaced by a future full of hope, love, and strength. And as for Zoya, she would always remember the day she tried to destroy Aisha's happiness. She would remember the patient, quiet, unstoppable force of someone who refused to be a victim. Aisha had turned fear into power, threats into strategy, and betrayal into justice. She had survived, she had triumphed, and she had made sure that no one would ever threaten her life, or her happiness, again. The story ended not with chaos, but with victory. Not with fear, but with strength. Not with revenge for the sake of anger, but revenge as a lesson that those who try to harm others would one day face the consequences, perfectly calculated, and completely unavoidable. Aisha had won. And this time, there was no turning back.